Today on LawNext, a panel discussion recorded live on Boston's unique contributions to the legal tech landscape. On July 18th, I moderated an in-person panel of 3 chief legal officers focused on legal tech in the greater Boston area, the companies that are headquartered there, the tech these CLOs are using, and the climate for tech startups more broadly. The panelists graciously agreed to allow me to record our conversation, and what you'll hear in today's episode is that recording. In addition to myself as moderator, you'll hear 3 panelists today. They are Margaret Minister, General Counsel for Evisort, an AI-driven contract lifecycle management company that was founded out of Harvard Law School and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Also on the panel is Mo Cowan, Chief Legal and External Affairs Officer at Devoted Health, a tech-enabled all-in-one healthcare company founded to dramatically improve overall health and well-being for seniors by caring for them like family. Mo is also a former acting U.S. Senator from Massachusetts. And finally on the panel is Matt Rowe, Chief Legal Officer at Parallel Wireless, the former General Counsel to Shoebox, the equity management platform acquired by Fidelity. The panel took place as part of the inaugural meeting of Legal Tech Boston, a group formed to bring together the community of those involved in legal tech in the area. The event was hosted by the law firm Gunderson Detmer and sponsored by the professional training company SkillBurst Interactive. The first voice you'll hear on this recording is that of Joe Green. Joe is the Chief Innovation Officer at Gunderson Detmer. Following Joe is Anusha Gillespie, Chief Strategy and Growth Officer at SkillBurst Interactive, and the driving force behind organizing this event. Before we get to all of that, please take a moment to learn about the sponsors whose generosity supports this podcast. Looking for modern technology to streamline your practice? Look no further than Bill for Time. Bill for Time automates your time tracking with multiple timers, standardizes your invoicing with customizable templates, and accelerates payment processing with a native online payment processor, enabling your firm to get paid up to 70% faster. With Bill for Time, you can focus on your practice rather than on a task list. Learn more at billfortime.com today. And now on to the Legal Tech Boston panel.
Thanks so much, everybody, for coming. My name is Joe Green. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Gunderson Detmer. Gunderson is thrilled to be hosting this inaugural legal tech event for the Boston legal tech community. This is an admission against interest, but I am not based in Boston. I came in from another city, New York. I tell you that not because I'm hoping to get booed out of the room, but because actually this kind of event is very personal to me. So you may be aware, or you may not, New York has had this kind of community, this legal tech meetup of people from all different groups, right? Law firms, corporate legal departments, legal ops, technology companies, and investors as well. That's been going strong for 6-7 years, and Gunderson actually hosted the initial legal tech meetup in New York as well. I've been a part of that community for a long time. The whole global legal tech community is pretty tight-knit, but having a legal tech community in your hometown of everybody kind of working on similar problems and helping each other, sharing ideas, it's really very special. I've bought technology from folks in that community. I've built technology with folks in that community, gotten job offers from folks in that community, and I've hired people from folks in that community. So that's my hope for this group, that this becomes a recurring event, that you all lean into it, keep showing up, help organize it, and make it your own, because it really can do some wonderful things for the common problems that we're all trying to solve. Just want to say a few quick thank yous. Laura Stoffel, partner in our Boston office here, helped to organize the event, sponsored us, and also Amanda Harvey and Durden Law, who have done a fantastic job setting all of this up in this wonderful space. So without further ado, I want to introduce Anusha Gillespie, who really has been the driving force behind bringing this together and kicking off this amazing community here in Boston. So, Anusha.
Thank you, Joe. And I will speak briefly and then hand it to everyone who you came to hear from. My name is Anusha Gillespie. I'm the one who's been sending the emails. That's me.
Good job.
Thank you. I work at Skillverse Interactive. We're the leading e-learning company, working with AmLaw 100 and 200 firms for the past 10 years. And where did this come from? How did this come to be? Is really bringing everyone from the ecosystem together around legal tech. I think with the advent of generative AI, everyone kind of realizes that legal tech is relevant for all of us in legal, and maybe better said, we are all relevant to legal tech and to the cultural challenges around that, and to kind of all of the shared challenges, all of the shared opportunities, learning sorry, I'm nervous. I'm not good at public speaking. And drawing analogies. And drawing analogies across the ecosystem. So thank you for all being here because you represent that. You come from law firms, you come from legal technology companies, from universities, from all over, from in-house, from all over the ecosystem. So thank you. And thank you to Gunderson. And thank you to all of our esteemed panelists and speakers, and Bob. And I'll briefly introduce my good friend, Senator Mo Cowan. He is the Chief Legal and External Affairs Officer at Devoted Health. He's board chair at Mass Challenge and all-around great guy. We had Margaret Minister. She's the general counsel at Eversort, the legal technology company. Matt Rowe, Chief Legal Officer at Parallel Wireless, who has an interesting legal tech Boston story to share as well. And Bob Ambrogi. I don't know that there's much to say about Bob, other than he's been doing this for 20 years. Internationally known, blogger, podcasts, like all the media, and very
all-around great guy.
Well-rounded, all-around good guy. Legal tech innovation and ethics, importantly. So with that, Bob, I will hand it to you.
Thank you, Anuja. And I think I'm here because I wrote about Anuja when she was in her first year of law school, doing something somewhat innovative at Boston College Law School. And a few of us went to Boston College Law School as well along the way, so we all have that connection. I think I have to tell you this under Massachusetts law, that I am recording this. So if any of you ask a question, and you're going to be able to ask questions, you are being recorded. I am going to try and put this up as an episode of I have a podcast called LawNext, and if the recording works, we will put this up in a couple of weeks as an episode of that podcast, so you'll be able to go back and listen a second time if you enjoy it today. I guess we're going to try and talk today about Boston's place in the legal tech world, and maybe even ask the question, does it have a place in the legal tech world, or what exactly is that place? I mean, to me, I think it clearly does, and there are a number of legal tech companies that operate here currently. LinkSquares is one that's here. Well, Skillburst, of course, is here. Thanks to Skillburst for sponsoring us. Notarize, which I guess you can kind of call a legal tech company, digital notarization. And it's just been a long history. I mean, Mark Lawrenson is, and obviously Eversort. We're going to talk about Eversort. You're going to be sick of Eversort by the end of the day.
No, you won't.
But, Mark Lawrenson is sitting over here, who's been a pioneer in writing and thinking and developing technology in the legal space for a long time. We have Suffolk Innovation Lab. Harvard Law Library has an innovation lab. I understand they're going to be putting together a conference in the fall, I think on generative AI. Quentin Steenhouse is here from Suffolk's Innovation Lab. Suffolk Group was doing a legal tech meetup in the Boston area for a while. I don't know, I think COVID killed that. I think that just kind of fizzled out. And that was a good group. So there is a lot of activity in the Boston area. It's not San Francisco. It's not LA even maybe. But there's a core of legal tech activity and people involved in the legal tech scene. I think even
how are you defining the Boston area? Because I think you may have missed one big exception, big addition.
If we reach out into New England a little bit, we might find a place called Theory and Principle, which does a little bit of legal tech development work, I understand, and has the most awesome office space in all of the legal tech world, I think. Right on the waterfront up in Portland, Maine. So we're going to try and talk a little bit more about this and get into it a little bit more. And I wanted to start with Margaret because you are, in fact, at a legal tech company. And you're at a legal tech company that got its start here in the Boston area in an interesting way, I think. When you came to the company, you really hadn't been in the legal tech space before that. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about Evisort, tell a little bit about its origin story, and then what attracted you about what it was doing that made you want to join up with them.
Sure, and those are really great related questions because the story of how Evisort was founded is really in part what drew me to it. So Evisort, we have a hub here in Boston, a critical mass of data scientists, engineers, myself, a lawyer, product employees as well who work in the Boston area. But in 2016, long before all of us in this room discovered that AI was big in the legal world, our founder, Jerry Ting, was at Harvard Law School. And he was increasingly frustrated by the manual review of contracts and discovery and thinking there has to be a better way.
A student at Harvard.
He was a student at Harvard Law School. And he, through sort of serendipity, he was, I think, volunteering for the pro bono immigration project at Harvard Law School, met a PhD student at MIT, Amin Anoon, who remains our chief technology officer. And the two of them put together a plan for a business and developed an algorithm and developed a company in conjunction with another then Harvard Law student, Jake Sussman, and eventually two others, Meme Amudue and Riley Hawkins. And so our foundation is in Cambridge, but also included data scientists from Northeastern and law students from Harvard Law School, PhD student from MIT, and in conjunction with the Harvard Innovation Lab, launched this company while still in law school. And for, a number of years, it was based in Cambridge. Right.
We had a planning call, and I was kind of teasing you because we're talking about Boston legal tech companies, but they moved to San Francisco. They moved their headquarters to San Francisco. That's okay. We can forgive them that. But what brought you to the company? What interested you in them?
Well, there's still, and let me be clear, there's still very strong ties with Harvard Law School. Jerry and Meme each year continue to teach at the Harvard Legal Innovation Program at the law school. We are very actively involved in the executive education program there. And so I became interested because, personally, I had been a law partner for many, many years and was blessed with working with very innovative, tech-savvy attorneys. But we didn't get a lot of traction in the industry. There weren't a lot of tools available to us. And so I became more and more interested in working with our startups who were very tech-savvy and forward-thinking, and much like our founders, thinking there has to be a better way. There has to be an easier way to be generating documents and storing documents and categorizing and classifying and searching documents for critical data. So I started looking for startup opportunities and just loved the story of Evisort and became enamored with the whole idea of this platform. And so now I jokingly refer to myself as the chief champagne tester because I am the first practicing lawyer at the company. So the product team is watching everything I do with the platform, and I get to play around with it a lot and love it.
Yeah, and what does the legal department look like there?
We now have two lawyers, myself and my associate general counsel, Colby Manganin. And we usually have one legal intern from a law school. Often locally, Northeastern is a wonderful partner of ours because they have that great externship program.
Mo, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about more, you were introduced in terms of what you do, but talk a little bit more about your organization, your legal department, and where you are in use of technology within your legal department.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. First of all, privileged and honored to be here. I'm going to announce, in your first year contracts class, there are seats in front. I know everybody keeps gravitating towards the back. But as you heard in the introduction, I am the Chief Legal and External Affairs Officer for Devoted Health. I'm the first in that role. The role didn't exist before I came on board. The company itself is about 6.5 years old. We are what we call a tech-enabled, all-in-one healthcare company providing healthcare and coverage for American seniors, and we want to treat them like family. Let me go back to that tech-enabled part. A big reason we are successful in what we do is that we depend heavily on technology, data mining, use of data to understand our members' and patients' needs, to get them the kind of care they need in the right time, in the right place, right considerations. I work with some of the brightest people in their fields. And there is so much attention to technology and how we use it to accomplish our means. This group will know in our prep call, I said, sometimes though I feel like as the legal team, we're sort of like the analog people in a very digitized world. And I remarked that one of my early experiences was I realized that a number of the other operational teams had particular folks assigned to them, data engineering team or otherwise, to help them develop, acquire, whatever the case may be, the technological needs that they wanted and needed to deliver on their promise to our members. It was interesting, no one was assigned to the legal team. And so remedying that, of course, but I realized it was because of two related phenomena. One, and this is true, we're all in the legal field, but the reality is most operational people in most companies don't think of the legal teams as sort of the forward-leaning part of the operation. Sometimes most people still don't want to deal with us, right? We're working against that. So people don't think about technology in the context of the legal work and the legal needs. The other reality is this. I think most lawyers still, including some lawyers we're still producing coming out of law school immediately, don't even begin to think about, understand, or contemplate how technology can actually help them accomplish the work. We still teach law in a very analog fashion. And so law and technology is still almost like this ephemeral concept as opposed to this practical reality. Why do I make that point? Because I think still many lawyers, particularly in-house lawyers, don't even know what they need to know to think about how they might utilize legal tech.
How do you tackle that? How are you evolving from an analog to a digital legal department?
I spend a lot of time talking to people smarter than me.
How do you find them?
It's easy, trust me. It's a low bar. But I talk to the folks on our engineering team, our data scientists, and what I realize in order for us to deliver on what we need to deliver on for our internal customers and clients, if you will, we have to step up our game. We need to be as tech savvy, tech enabled as they are to keep pace and deliver on what they need from us. So I talk to the folks, I talk to my customers, I talk to my clients, I talk to the tech folks to understand and help them understand what it is we're trying to do for them. And in those conversations, oftentimes, Bob, gaps are revealed, right? And that empowers me to think about how best to fill those gaps. Mm-hmm. And I recognize filling them in an analog fashion is just not acceptable. And so I need to figure out what are the more advanced tech solutions, if any, that are available to me, right? And so then you go talk to the folks in the field. What are the options? The reality is there's a lot of tech, with all due respect, in legal tech, a lot of it's what I'll call backroom or sort of back office. We have tons of contracts, vendor contracts, provider contracts. Certainly helping us process those contracts more efficiently is important to us. But there's so much more to our work that I often think legal tech has yet even begun to tap into, right? And so not that the sort of the back office things aren't important, they're critically important. But the question for us all, I think, even in the world of AI, is what is going to be the role for legal tech in some of those responsibilities we have as lawyers, advisors, where judgment is critical and key, and is there a space for legal tech there? Now, by the way, if I may, sure. The other hat I wear, you heard in the introduction, I'm chair of the board of Mass Challenge, which literally right there. And we deal with entrepreneurs, innovators all the time who come to us with ideas to address the problems of the world or make our world easier. Mass Challenge is a not-for-profit accelerator incubator for early stage companies spanning all sorts of fields. We've been around for about 14 years. One of the earliest in our space, one of the most successful. We've done a lot in health tech. We've done a lot in fintech. We're doing stuff in age tech, right? Amazingly enough, we've done very little in legal tech here in Boston, right? which is a great legal community. But, for purposes of this conversation, I actually asked our team, I'm like, let's go back and look at our records and see how many true legal tech companies have come through our programs. It is de minimis. It's minimal. There's a couple like Trust and Will, things like that, but you don't see a lot of those. And it was interesting in these conversations, they said part of the challenge, I think, for entrepreneurs, innovators in this space, ideators in legal tech, is that the people they need to purchase these ideas are still very much stuck in traditional analog ways and are resistant to technology in our field. And of course, they're talking to the guy who's like, oh, it kind of sounds like me.
Yeah. Well, I think Anuja is trying to put her thumb on you to get some investment in access to justice or legal tech. So hopefully that happens. Matt, you've been in and around tech pretty much your entire legal career, and you're not at a legal tech company right now, but arguably you were in the past. So why don't you talk a little bit about your journey and what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think similar to Margaret's story, all great companies in tech are born out of somebody feeling deeply a problem, right, or some inefficiency. And so the company Shoebox that I helped start with a bunch of Boston founders was born out of frustration. We had a founder of a company, a very successful local company called Endeca, 9-year run, raised tons of venture capital, was acquired by Oracle. And the founder of that company, on the other side of successful exit, was extremely frustrated at how much money and inefficiency was spent on that journey. He had a young, talented MIT software engineer that he really liked, and then there was this, Matt Rowe lawyer guy. And so we got together at the Marriott in Cambridge, and he was describing this frustration, right? And I was the frustrated lawyer, having recently left a large law firm that said, I wasn't here to copy and paste documents and create the best signature pages you've ever seen. There's more to it. We want to sort of raise the level of the profession. And so we had this light bulb moment of software can solve a lot of this. It's workflow, it's cap table management, it's taking a stock certificate and making it electronic, oh my, right? This was not innovative technology in the sense that it hadn't been applied somewhere else, right? It was applying it to kind of a new problem area where there was some reluctance to sort of tap into it. And so we developed a platform that lawyers and law firms could use, that companies could use to manage kind of the rote day-to-day business of managing a company, a Delaware corporation that raises venture capital, hires employees, grants options. And so it was all born out of the tech ecosystem in Boston and frustration around how it had been done sort of traditionally. And it was fantastic to start it in Boston just to sort of, tout the ecosystem here, because all of anybody that represents tech companies from a lawyer's perspective, all of those companies, Mo, to the point you raised, are innovating in all of their areas. And while they may not expect their lawyers to do it, it's certainly something that has become more and more prevalent over the years. It's how are you going to practice, in a more innovative, more efficient way? How do I get more value out of the services that you deliver as a lawyer? And so we had companies that were willing to be those beta customers. We had, some of the most innovative law firms, this firm here included, right in our back door that, was willing to experiment, willing to undergo some of the friction of trying something new. And those are the ingredients for getting something moving.
It's interesting you said that. I was thinking about the fact that Boston has, if nothing else, well, it's got lots of things going for it, but the numbers of law firms that have really been innovative in the tech field in the Boston area. Didn't you say you started at Testa way back when? Or?
I date myself by saying that.
Way back.
But yes, absolutely.
But that was one of the first firms that was really a leader in representing tech companies all over the country.
Yeah.
So a whole bunch of us who are in this room have just come over from another conference that's been going on down the street where all anybody was talking about was generative AI, and it's probably all anybody's talking about anywhere these days. Ed Walter's sitting over here from Fastcase VLEX, who's developing some generative AI products as we speak, not at this moment, perhaps. And, a lot of focus on this area. And I'm wondering how each of you are thinking about this technology and going about. I mean, Margaret, you're an AI company to begin with, but this is a sort of a new generation of AI. So how are you looking at this either as a company or within your legal department?
Sure. Well, again, I have the benefit of testing all the new products that are coming out, and it's very exciting. We have a generative AI element to our workflow. So we are able to generate red lines based on our legal playbook. So for instance, if I have a standard contract up in our workflow and it's from a third party, my system will recommend to me red lines that will comply with our standard terms and conditions. We can take that workflow and generate a document from scratch. It's really cutting edge. It's really exciting. And it's the type of AI that has been available for quite some time. We may not recognize it as lawyers. We tend to be a little more cautious about adopting new technology. But if you think about it, we're all using Spotify to recommend our music. We're using Netflix to recommend television programs and movies. And you know right off the bat whether those are accurate or not. That AI, it works. You can tell if it works. You can almost immediately recognize the benefit of it. It's not replacing attorneys. It's really just adding a new element that is then subject to human review. So we are employing it on a day-to-day basis. I think there's a lot of confusion out in the marketplace about the different types of generative AI or AI in general. When you're talking about a large language model, for instance, that's where this notion of hallucinations comes in, or they're scraping the internet. You don't know the reliability of the input or the output, whereas a solution like ours, like Evasort, which is, API, it's integrated and it's got a curated data set, is much more reliable because you know the data that it's being trained on, run on. You can rely on the output much better than the publicly available large language models.
Yeah, interesting. Well, what about for you? Are you thinking about this technology? And if so, what are you thinking? How are you going about it?
I think about it often, all the time even though there are days I struggle to spell AI. But the reality is AI is here. It's evolving rapidly. I think it's going to impact all facets of certainly industry and our lives. For us as a healthcare company, we are thinking about it in the context of how might it help us deliver better care and service to our members, drive efficiency across a number of domains. As a legal team, we have to think about, what are the boundaries, what are the risks associated with that, particularly, personal healthcare information or personal identifiable information, HIPAA rules and things like that. So there's a lot of questions that are important for us to ask and understand, but always with the mindset of how are we going to best or better utilize this incredibly powerful resource that is available to us, because we all exist in a world now where we can't pretend it doesn't exist, or we're going to pretend that we don't have to ready ourselves for it. So we're trying to be smart, we're trying to be thoughtful, we're trying to be forward leaning on this. I'm not particularly thinking about it as, in the context of AI legal tech, but I know in the context of our overall conversations, that will be and become part of the conversation. But it's an ever-present conversation. And I will say this, I think our industry borders on somewhere between shy and totally terrified of AI. And I worry that we may fall into the bad habit of not looking at the ways that we can master and manipulate in the best way this powerful tool for the good of our industry and our clients and those who depend upon us, but default to how do we rein this thing in and limit its use and application. Yeah. And I'm not sure that latter perspective is the right one.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Matt, how about you? What kinds of thinking, what kinds of conversations are you having around this?
My gloss on this is slightly different. I love it because I think it is now a license to experiment, right? Any law firm you talk to has got a strategy around this. They're educating. And it was this catalyst to look at all this stuff that perhaps, others were reluctant to engage with before. There's a whole, to Mo's point, there's a mountain of efficiencies that can be deployed through, basic use of software, basic use of data and workflow technology. And so much of what has held legal tech back, I think, has been an adoption problem, an inertia problem. You put yourself in the shoes of a partner with stress or an associate with a deadline, throwing something that's not the Microsoft Office stack at them, right, in the throes of pressure and stress is a huge thing to ask for, right? And so AI comes along, and it really is the power and the promise of it are just so utterly compelling. I think it's pulling the ecosystem sort of into experimentation. And so I almost like it for this sort of indirect, sort of effect. And it's really this license to start experimenting. And of course with AI and of course in all the ways that we've talked about. But I'm hoping it's really a catalyst for legal tech generally.
That's really interesting. Because one of the things I've heard about the legal professions and the pandemic was that the pandemic also kind of opened the door to that license to experiment more, where lawyers were suddenly a little bit more willing to try tech that they were afraid of for a long time. And so possibly the generative AI, ChatGPT arriving on the heels of that has really helped further fuel.
It's all behavior-based, because I would imagine that the vast majority of the legal tech that's being built and deployed, it's all technology that could have been deployed 5 years ago, right? It's really this adoption problem that I hope is start easing.
You're listening to a panel discussion recorded live on July 18th at the inaugural meetup of Legal Tech Boston, a group of in-house law firm, government, and law school leaders from the greater Boston area. We have a lot more to talk about with the panel, and we'll also get to some questions from the audience. But before we get to any of that, please take a moment to learn about the sponsors whose generosity supports this podcast. Ditch manual billing and experience a seamless billing solution with Bill for Time. Bill for Time's user-friendly platform streamlines all aspects of the billing process, from standardized invoicing and customizable templates to built-in payment processing with Bill for Time payments. Bill for Time accelerates the payment process by up to 70%. Find out more about how Bill for Time can enhance your practice by visiting billfortime.com. That's Bill, the number 4, time.com. Welcome back to LawNext. Although a number of legal tech companies have been founded in the greater Boston area, it is not a legal technology hub on par with cities such as San Francisco and New York. As we continue the conversation with our panel of chief legal officers of 3 technology companies, I asked them for their thoughts on whether Boston is a good place to start and build a technology company. Let's get back to the panel.
I wanted to ask a little bit, now you've been with a number of tech companies over the years and working with tech companies as a lawyer. How would you rate the climate around here for starting a tech company compared to other places in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to what's unique and positive and exciting about being here. I'm sure there's examples of this in lots of other ecosystems, but I think Boston likes to solve hard problems. And there's a million examples, the MIT Engine and all sorts of organizations, Mass Challenge, right? Not to mention the life science community, right? I mean, solving real problems. And there's sort of a pride in that, and I think it's kind of uniquely Boston, sort of Cambridge. The founder ecosystem and the support of founders is vast. People wear it as a badge of honor. There's no shortage of resources and relationships in Boston. We have this fantastic ecosystem of successful companies that have born the next generation of successful founders, whether it's Endeca or HubSpot. We're seeing it now with Toast, right? Not to mention, again, the life science ecosystem. But I think that's really unique to Boston. There's a lot of pride in that. And there's also this feeling of supporting your friend's company. I'm going to be, as I said before, the guinea pig for whatever particular application. And then on the law firm side, too, those law firms represent and sort of travel along with that success, right? They have relationships at a founder level that go through the A round, through the exit to the next company, right? As well as the venture community. So it's this diaspora of relationships. That's been a fantastic part,
What were the negative points? Were there negative points?
It's also very incestuous, right? I mean, relationships are key, right? You burn a bridge over here. I mean, it gets ugly real fast, right? Yeah. And I've seen behavior in reaction to that, right? You need to sort of appreciate that if you're in this community, much less you dedicating yourself to a particular industry.
Margaret, what are your thoughts on what the climate is like around here for not necessarily a legal tech company, but for just getting a tech company of any kind going around?
Right. Well, I think Matt is right, and I liked his use of the term, diaspora of lots of friends and connections. Looking around this room, Jeff Marple is here from Counsel Propulsion Labs, which is a wonderful partner of ours, and Nadine Ezzy is right here in the front row. Also, she's a legal tech consultant. So it's a wonderful community. Legal tech in particular is a smaller community. But we have one of the biggest benefits, I think, of being in the Boston area is you have this very unique confluence of lots of law firms and legal departments and really interesting industries that are data-driven. We're not talking about manufacturing widgets in Boston. We have research and development companies. We have fascinating cutting-edge technology companies. And then you have developers of tech right next door. So you have this wonderful ecosystem of not only the developers, but the users. And in particular for legal tech, it's the lawyers who are telling us what the use cases are. It's the lawyers who are telling us what the new product features ought to be. They're telling us what they ought not to be. And so having that confluence of the data scientists and the users in one place, I think, is really unique to Boston.
Yeah. Mo, what are your thoughts on the climate here for tech companies?
Bob, I'm the chair of Mass Challenge. It's awesome. By the way, I don't know how many of you know this, but Mass Challenge actually does not stand for Massachusetts Challenge. It stands for Massive Challenge. Yeah, how about that? Right? Blowing your mind, right? Blowing your mind. I think Massachusetts, I think Greater Boston, I think New England is a fantastic place for innovation, ideators, excelling. Like, this should be the place that legal tech has a strong foothold for those reasons, because of the legal community, because of the legal academic community, all the law schools here that generate the talent, all the companies, early stage and otherwise, that are here. I'm not in the legal tech space, but if I were, I would spend a lot of time just trying to talk to those entities to find out what the use cases are. Internally, to your first question, Bob, that's what I'm doing. I said to my tech team, come figure out what it is, how we work. And we'd love your ideas how we can work better, differently, right, to keep pace with everyone else. Figure out what the marketplace needs and then develop that thing. There's no better place for that than Boston. We've done it before in technology with digital equipment. We've done it in the life sciences space over and over again. We do it in healthcare all the time and academics as well. So why not here? And by the way, it's also a financial center, particularly one that's well attuned to early stage entrepreneurs and otherwise. All the pieces are here, and Boston, Greater Boston, New England is a place that attracts that kind of talent for a host of reasons. We have missed out on the opportunity to make this the hub of legal tech, but the opportunity is not past us. Now, before I go on, just to go off script a little bit, those Gucci strawberry sneakers are fire.
It's not legal tech. But NFT could be.
Yeah.
You have to have a footnote for the podcast.
Yeah, we need a photo. I spend a lot of my time talking to developers and vendors of legal tech products who want nothing more than to get into your door and talk to you and perhaps make a sale to you. Lots of competitors of yours out there just in the contract space. What are vendors doing wrong in terms of trying to talk to you? What are they doing right in terms of trying to talk to you? What advice do you have for how you can have a sort of a better, maybe more collaborative conversation with those who are developing legal tech products and those who are using legal tech products in the corporate legal world? Matt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, and I'll answer that question through the lens of how I respond to the emails and the phone calls and the references, right?
Okay.
And I answer all of them just because, of course, right? the companies that spend time to say, okay, I have a day job at Parallel Wireless. We build telecom software. We have maybe 5 contracts a year. They're all bespoke. They're all $5 million plus contracts. I don't need a high volume contract management system. And so when those phone calls come in, okay, did you do the work to understand what my problem is, right? And if you didn't, I'll explain why this is a waste of your time and my time, right? And so to me, a lot of different legal tech applications are either very feature specific, they're solving a very precise pain point, and so you need to align that pain point with who you're talking to, right? And how does this is no different than any other sort of technology sales cycle, but it's really understanding your customer and is that pain point relevant? I had a Link Square, as you had mentioned before. I have a fantastic team there. And I said the same thing, I don't have this high volume contract problem. And they said, aha, but what about all of the internal workflow elements, accounting and finance and sales ops? And I said, yeah, that is it. So they were attuned to sort of pivoting the different use cases, based on what they heard as my pain point. Yeah. So I think to me, that's key.
Yeah. That knowing who you're talking to is critical, and it's amazing how many people don't ever take the time to do that. It's really surprising. I'm going to skip you for this question because you are a vendor, and then I'm going to go to Mo, and then maybe I'll come back to you for your thoughts on it. But Mo, what about you? How can they be more collaborative? How can they get your ear? How can they be more collaborative with you?
So first, I now, Matt's made me feel badly because he responds to all the emails.
Every one of them.
Everyone, dude. I get a lot of emails. But then a lot of them are essentially some version of, you're in the healthcare space, so I assume you have these challenges, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes they're spot on. Oftentimes they're very generalized. And I'm like, this is just an email where you've plugged in my name, and then there's 100 other names you're going to plug in that got pushed out, probably by some AI, right?
Right.
And so you don't necessarily get a response from me. So I do look for people who try to reach out to me and evidence that they understand our company, or at least have done enough work that they've developed a curiosity about our company and say, how might I help you? I'd love to talk about and figure out how I might help you because you may be, dealing with some of these things. I don't respond to a lot of those emails. Here's this little secret I'm going to tell all of you all. I almost always respond to those little pings I get on LinkedIn, right? Because if you ping me on LinkedIn, you've probably taken time to actually read my bio on LinkedIn. If you're smart, you've then gone to the company page and you've done a little bit of research, and then you reach out and you say, I'd love to get some time and attention. At a minimum, you're going to get a response from me, right? And that response may be, I don't think you're offering what I need, or it may be, I'm curious about why you think you're offering something that I need. And so I've been in private practice. I've been in consulting from a government affairs perspective. So I know the importance of trying to get clients and trying to build relationships and making those cold calls. I get all that. So I'm not dismissive of or disrespectful of that. But even in that work, it requires some degree of diligence so that I feel comfortable that the person reaching out to me has done some work to make me know I'm not just another, sort of notch on the belt if they're able to get my attention. Just being frank about it, because the emails are voluminous and they come all the time. And then the follow-up emails where they're like, I didn't hear from you. And I'm like, yeah, but you did, right? So, at events like this, I love the one-on-one conversations. I don't know much of what many of you do in your space, so I'm curious, right? And I may not, in fact, need what you have to offer, but it's conceivable. I actually may know someone who does need what you have to offer.
And I would say one other point I would say is we are this small, relatively tight-knit group of folks, general counsels of technology companies in Boston. It's a really small circle. We all talk to each other, right? You share ideas of how have you implemented link squares and what did you find is the most value? Like that happens all the time, and that's replicated on a national level, on a regional level. So the community as the sort of the sales cycle is real small, real fast.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, tomorrow morning when you start your LinkedIn, you're going to be sorry you said that.
I didn't say I'd get back to you right away.
Well, I will
Margaret,
add.
yeah.
I will add that
Yeah.
I also get emails from CLM sellers,
I'm sure. I'm sure.
which just proves Mo and Matt's point that they're not looking into your business
Yeah.
all the time. Well, I would add just one bit of advice, which is, AI. If you've tested out ChatGPT, you know that it works right off the bat, right? You need to ask for a trial of any AI-based technology. And you need to test it out. If it's not working on day 0, then it's not going to work on day 1.
Yeah.
And it is baffling to me that there are, and I'm talking about MySpace in particular, CLM, AI-powered CLM. It's baffling to me how it can take 7 to 8 months to implement some solution along those lines when it really ought to be working right away. So make sure that you're asking for a trial.
Yeah, and asking about the deployment. I want to make sure we have time for some questions, so I'm going to stop here and see if anybody has any questions for the panel. Indeed.
Thank you. First off, thank you to all of you. You guys have been all spot on everything you said. I'm an attorney as well. I consult in the legal tech space. My biggest question to all of you, and I think you all have something to say, I think we can all agree the attorney mindset, and I think you've all touched upon this, is one of the bigger impediments to the proliferation of legal tech. What can we do? What is the messaging that we should be doing to move the needle on that, to shift that? Is it telling them that, there's a competitive edge, they're falling behind in their competitors? Is it fear-based? Is it a combination? Is it, saying, hey, you can be a better business partner? What is it, in your guys' opinion, as to what's going to be able to move the needle on that?
Yep. Well, and so I'll use my friend Joe as an example, right? A lot of these law firms have all started to hire innovation talent, data scientists, like people whose job is to now think about these things. That wasn't there, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? So things are moving. So you also have a place to go now. Like before, you were hunting for that partner that was willing to try something, maybe had a high volume practice where they felt that pain more acutely. So there are now people at certainly most of the large law firms who are thinking about this problem set every day, right? So that is making it immediately easier. Where we would get traction was, again, a lawyer that's feeling the pain that you're addressing, right? And you had to give some thought to, what does that lawyer look like? What is their practice? What does their book of business look like? Is it a firm that has 1 million associates and I don't care and it doesn't matter to me, right? So it's focusing in on that, and where is that message going to resonate? The fear thing is huge. Joe, these firms see one firm does something and like, oh my God, we're behind on AI. Yeah, right. So there's something to that. Trying to do something innovative with a firm that is a key opinion leader in a space. Start small, right? Think about the partner committee you're going to have to convince to roll something out that's institutional, as opposed to having an individual lawyer just try a thing.
Well, and Nadine, I think you know a lot of these answers because you're talking to some of these companies. From an in-house perspective, I think it is communicating that you can help them solve the bigger problems by routinizing, by creating processes that will be more automated. So my pain point is I can't get to the stuff that is really going to ultimately move the needle. And so making a sale in terms of, or selling a technology that's going to accelerate the sales cycle and, to use your terms, make the legal department a better business partner so that they can focus on the mission, which is ultimately, drive profits.
Try to get to know us, understand us, ask me, right? What are our pain points? What are we struggling with? I have a small team who has a lot to do. Right? I'm always thinking about how can I get the most out of my team without overburdening them and still meet all of our obligations. There's some things that just have to be done. As I mentioned earlier, we've got tons of contracts. We're about to onboard a CLM for the first time in almost 7 years, right? Because it just got to a point where the old analog way of processing contracts was not only inefficient, it was impractical and bordering on impossible. And once that CLM is in place, hopefully we've chosen the right one. And by the way, we actually are going to, we've done some demos to make sure it's ready on day 0. It will allow me actually will allow the person who now owns that responsibility on my team greater capacity to do other things, which will be great for her because it's actually going to be potentially career advancing for her, right? So, yeah, you have to overcome our reticence, our reluctance to try something new. Lawyers, by definition, are conservative, generally speaking. We're also the most self-protective industry imaginable, right? So anything that threatens the traditional structure is something that we're going to approach with a great deal of caution and suspicion about. I say that just to state the obvious, but you got to deal with it. But I come from this, it's all about come to me and say, listen, how can I help you, right? Let's talk about what you're struggling with, how your business is going, what you're seeing, what are your needs. If you come to me and say, listen, I want to help you, I want to learn more about what you're doing so I can see if I can help you, I'm almost naturally predisposed to having that conversation. If you offer me a bourbon, I'm definitely predisposed to having that conversation.
All right.
We'll talk about that
Another question.
after 80.
All right, thank you all.
Another question.
I'm curious how you see the role of the legal department where it comes to exploration of LLMs and generative AI by employees of the company. Do you see that as your role to de-risk that exploration, or do you think that's more an IT role? Or is it sort of group projects and collaborating?
I'll give it first shot. My view, it is a collaborative responsibility. Absolutely. I loathe legal departments who behave and embrace the notion that their sole responsibility is the reason they exist is to tell people why they shouldn't do things. And so to avoid that, you always have to have focus on collaboration across the enterprise. To your question on this topic, I'm collaborating with IT, right? I'm collaborating with our information security team. But importantly, I'm collaborating with those who might use or who have the ideas for how AI might be used. So we're having this conversation right now. We have a board meeting coming up in a few weeks. We're going to talk about this topic. And I told my team, and they're like, listen, we got to think about the risk. We got to start thinking about what are the guardrails? What should we have in place? I said, it's all true. I said, but here's where we're going to start. We're going to go start with the folks who are thinking about how to use AI. Let's understand what the use cases may be, right? Let's understand it at a fundamental commercial, business, technological perspective, because absent that, we're just shooting in the dark and putting in place rules or guidelines, guardrails that don't align with what the operational teams, the leaders, the information security folks are thinking is foolish. It's a waste of everybody's time, and we're not doing our job. So to me, it's collaborative. We have a significant and serious responsibility to make sure everybody's keenly aware of the risks, right? But making sure folks are aware of the risk does not mean that you adopt a position where they can't do something. The mindset needs to be, tell me what you want to do. Let's figure out how we do it. Let's understand what the guardrails are. But once you establish those with that bit of knowledge, there's a lot of territory I think you can operate in.
The question was, is it the legal department or is it the IT department that's shutting down these technologies? Saying it's had experience
for legal tech or AI or
for legal tech, yeah, specifically the legal tech. So I have multiple clients where they're requesting, they're wanting to know more about and experiment in these areas. And information security and IT is saying you got to play by the rules. And here are the rules which we just developed, by the way. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
I find it compelling though. It's kind of a switch from about 7 years ago when AI first came.
To me, it's a function. It's a little bit of the function of the sensitivity of the particular company, right? Like what powers IT, frankly, been given? Are they operating within some ISO constraint or some privacy policy, right? But if you're trying to break through that, it's kind of is it bullshit, frankly, or is there something substantive? And I think the other question, we need to get to a point where deployment and use of AI from a legal function is akin to choosing to decide to use open source software, right? Lawyers know these are the things that I need to worry about and grunt through and think through and document and process to use a piece of open source software, right? We need to have that same framework for the applications of AI so that right now you're probably getting the reaction of the fear of like, I just don't know how to think about this, right?
But I think the difference here is that your employees and your company's employees are using GPT to do a ton of dumb shit right now. And so you have to respond. Like, you don't, like, and it's responding at a global level, not just like, is this product okay for our company? Is this product okay? It's, what do we do to get them all to stop doing that?
Right, and I think you're hitting, a very good point here, which is the distinction between, again, the public models, which lawyers tend to shut down. I mean, think of the Samsung incident where the data scientists uploaded trade secrets and disclosed them, thereby ruining their trade secret protection. Yeah, doing dumb stuff, in other words. And the legal tech products, which is, I think, where IT gets involved and puts the kibosh on it, or really looks at all of those security practices and security controls and has more input than perhaps you as a lawyer would like them to have, because you like the product. Maybe they're ISO certified, they're compliant with all sorts of, data privacy frameworks, and IT is saying, but they don't comply with this strange certification somewhere else.
I just find it refreshing that in some cases I'm seeing legal starting to lead the way on some innovations.
Jeff, just to kind of piggyback on what you said, what I'm seeing is that a lot of times, in what you just said, in that instance, and where IT might say, listen, this doesn't necessarily meet to any of our security criteria, legal doesn't have the ability to know how to communicate back to that, to counter to that. And I'm being brought in to kind of surface this bridge, right? But it is dying a lot there, because legal, like, what do I say to that? IT just quashed it. I don't even know what they just said to me. Right. But it's true. It's
so
true. I'm seeing it. No, I'm just plus one-ing that.
Ken?
So I want to go on something that Senator said earlier, conservative industry that is resistant to change. And all of you are in-house, right? And so from the firm side, are you seeing any movements on changing billing structures, how firms bill their time? I'm sorry, I just assumed something there, right? And so how firms make money when this type of technology is available, like of a sort, to do something in a fraction of the time that you could have done before. And then so have you guys seen any movement? Because I'll be honest, like the G100 still measures success based on billable hour, right? And so have you guys seen any movement on that? Or where does that movement come from? Where the pressure for that movement come from? I'd just like to see your experience working with innovative law firms and how they're actually innovating their billing structures, especially in the past 6 months where you've had layoff announcements from many innovative law firms.
I would say the short answer is no. My gloss on AI generally with this sort of indirect theme is I think this is the best shot I see at forcing innovative pricing and billing models. I just had a conversation earlier today with a partner that was worried, given their rate structure, in the run-up in the last few years, hiring millions of associates, huge transactional work, rates run up, right? And now as things have cooled slightly, it's, let us go back and fill the funnel with early-stage companies, right? My response is in my little microcosm, you guys have priced yourself out of the market, right? At seed stage, ABC, like anything kind of pre-exit based, that work can be done at a lower billing rate. And I naively thought over the years that would start to erode. Fixed fee for just like some of us price. The SaaS pricing model is going to change once you hit milestones and inflection points. Would that drive change? And the answer is still the market pays what the rates are. And so I haven't seen it yet. But I'm optimistic that this AI push will force some creativity there. And again, my little microcosm is private tech, right? There's a million glosses on that question in different applications.
And in my experience, law firms have not been the adopters of our technology, and our biggest clients are the likes of Microsoft and Bank of New York Mellon and Netflix with large law departments that are akin to law firms, but they have a single client. So we haven't seen law firms on a large scale adopt a model of using this technology to maximize efficiency and drive their own profits with clients.
Do you see a future where they would?
I hope so. I'd love to see that, to be honest with you. I think these hourly fees are out of control, right? And I don't think law firms have figured it out yet, but eventually they actually are going to price themselves out of existence. And look, don't even come to me if you're outside law firm and tell me about the rack rates and sort of hourly. Like, I won't even have a conversation unless we're talking about alternative billing. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in that to talk about if you have technology, AI, or whatever that helps you deliver on the service, drive efficiency, arguably lower cost, right? Make my life easier, better. Then I'm actually going to be very interested in that conversation. I'm going to be interested in what technology you're using. Maybe it's something I want to adopt as well, right? But I just don't think generally law firms are thinking like that right now.
I think the venture community needs to form a view here, right? Because so much of, there's lots of applications of legal tech that are driven, frankly, by, well, my partner on my board said that this is what I got to use because the portfolio uses it, right? And thus far, I haven't seen a lot of engagement from at the fund side wanting to poke at this, right? Hey, can we try something different? So you look for the drivers of it, and I think venture will have to sort of, have a dog in the hunt.
I think it was Mark Twain who said the reports of the death of the billable hour have been greatly exaggerated.
Yeah.
No, I think this is a good opportunity. Maybe one more question, then we can transition. We can still mingle here for a little bit and get some food over there. But David, you.
Yeah. So I live in Denver, and 7 years ago, and I'm not originally from the legal industry, and I was looking for where to go to get expertise to start this company, and I went to Gabe Tenenbaum at Suffolk, who was the first person I met in February of 2016. And you wouldn't remember this, but you were the first legal journalist I ever contacted.
I remember.
And the first pitch deck I ever made was for Mass Challenge. And my perspective coming from Denver, as I looked at San Francisco and other places, was that this was an incredibly open, engaging, inviting community. The part of the reason I flew in for this was I really had a great affinity for the group here. I was curious about, because that's my perspective, that this is a vibrant, welcoming, approachable community. I was curious, that was 7 years ago for me, but what have the trends been in early stage legal tech here? Because it seems like it should be an incredible resource for early stage companies. What if is it flat? Is it growing?
I mean, my perspective is it's actually been kind of flat. There have been some other stories of people who have come out of Harvard and out of MIT and kind of gotten into it and then kind of gotten out of the area again. I don't know, Quentin, who's here from Suffolk, may be able to tell you more about some of the students who've come out of their program and gone into legal tech roles, but they often end up going to other cities or other places. I think there's a cohesive, nurturing community here. A lot of them are here now, but I haven't seen it grow in any substantial way probably since then over those years. I don't know. Do you see it differently, or? Well, I think part of it is just that so many people feel that they need to be in Silicon Valley when they have a tech company, and I think a lot of them are drawn there for the investment climate there. Although there's a healthy investment climate here, and a lot of big investors in legal tech are based in the Boston area. But to me, that's the main thing. Is I think a lot of people just have this pull to the West Coast.
I guess I would add that, and maybe this isn't unique to Boston, so maybe it doesn't answer the question specifically to Boston, David, but if you really think about it, there's still a lot of people in the positions of power, the buyers of legal services, who are my age and older, and they're barely analog. And so the notion that there's a technological solution or something that's accretive to the work, think about it. Just have to accept, it's always been true of our industry, we hold ourselves out as the highest form of professionals, and that the things that we do are exclusive to our little community, right? And we're very protective of that, and we're very resistant to change and disruption in that space. And that's still a battle, I think, if you're in legal tech, that you're fighting. And so I imagine more than we are willing to acknowledge, part of the challenge for the growth of legal tech here or anywhere else is that the market that they're trying and probably should be disrupting is so good at fighting against disruption of itself, of its industry.
Yeah, well, that's true in every major city across the United States and every small city as well. But that's very true. I think on that note, I want to thank the panelists for their time. I think really, really great insights, and I really appreciate it. And we can continue the conversation offline. And thanks to all of you for your great questions.
My sincere thanks to the three panelists, Margaret Minister, Mo Cowan, and Matt Rowe, for allowing me to record our conversation and make it available to listeners of LawNext. Thanks also to Gunderson Detmer and Skillburst Interactive for hosting and sponsoring this program. And special thanks to Joe Green and Anuja Gillespie for making it all happen. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments on today's show, please do so by tweeting us at LawNext Podcast or by emailing me directly, ambrogi@gmail.com. LawNext is produced, engineered, and edited by Populous Radio. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you join us again next time for another episode of LawNext.